What if you could build a business that gives you the life of freedom you deserve? What if you could find the secrets to marketing, leadership, customer service, and other aspects of business that help you exceed your goals? What if you could walk away from your business for 30 days and it never misses a beat? That's what this podcast is for, to help business leaders like you find freedom from the day-to-day grind and start spending your time doing the things you love. I'm Levi McClendon, and my co-host is Josh Taylor, and this is the Cheers to Freedom podcast.
Hey, welcome to the Cheers to Freedom podcast. I am your host, Josh Taylor. I'm with my co-host, Levi McClendon. And Levi, we also have a guest, Mr. Tim Schurrer. How are you guys?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Man,
We're doing great.
Really, really well. Tim, good to have you on, man. Good to meet you.
So fun. I am really grateful to be hanging with you guys. It sounds like we're going to have some fun. I'm in for it.
we always have fun. We never know where these conversations are going to go. But before we jump into our conversation, Tim, I want to introduce you. I'm really excited to have you here because you have been a part of a lot of what we have been talking about for the last several months with our listeners. You are the former Chief Operating Officer for StoryBrand with Donald Miller. You worked with Donald Miller really from kind of the beginning, and we'll kind of get your history there. But you've also worked with brands like Apple and Tom's Shoes, and you've just been a part of really amazing organizations and companies, and have learned so much. But you've written a book that is releasing here in a few weeks, and I'm really excited about. You gave me a copy of it early, and just I read it and could see myself all in this book, and it's called The Secret Society of Success. And we're going to talk a little bit about that book and some of the things that you've learned. But we're so excited to have you on the podcast today and getting into this. So welcome.
Hey, thank you guys.
One of the things that I've learned about you, last time I was in Nashville, we were at a retreat, and you and I got to have lunch. And one of the things that I noticed about you is you are a great storyteller. You like to tell stories, and your book is full of just stories of different people, which one lets me know that you're a student of people. You love to study people, and you learn from people's experiences, which is all throughout this book. And so I'm excited to dive into some of these stories. But we've known each other for a few years, and one of the things that I always did is we would go to these live workshops with StoryBrand. And I didn't meet you the first time that I went there because you're such a behind the scenes guy. Like you never were jumping out in front and doing a lot of things. But I noticed that there are a few things I noticed. One, you're a very positive person. You smile all the time, even when things were going bad. Like, and when you put on a live event like that, and you're working with convention centers and hotels and all this stuff, like there's always things that are going to go wrong, and you're always smiling through the process. You're figuring out solutions quickly. You're pulling other people in to help solve the problems. And the other thing is you're a details person. You're very much about excellence. You're very much about people having a really great experience. I remember Sydney, who was one of the live events coordinators. She was walking in, and we were doing some chairs and stuff. And because we both watched you with past live events, we both kind of looked at each other and said, "How would Tim do this?" and so we started like lining up the chairs in perfect lines and stuff like that. So lots of things that I've learned about you, but one of my favorite things is that you're just an incredibly nice guy. You treat people like they're the most important person to you, and I really appreciate that about you. But before I jump into my first question, Levi, anything you want to add or ask about Tim's history with us?
Yeah, no, I'm excited, Josh. Josh came to me a while ago and said, hey, Tim's written a book. I know Tim. He was the former COO of StoryBrand, Business Made Simple, whatever you call it these days. And as you know, I'm hook, line, and sinker with Don Miller, StoryBrand, building StoryBrand. It's changed my life literally, and that's why I say we are here today because I picked up the book on an airplane. Actually, just listened to it about 3.5 years ago, and it just changed the trajectory of me personally, my business, and again, that's why, Josh, you're sitting here today because of that. So it's awesome. There's points in your life you can go back to and say, that was a time and place in my life that changed the trajectory of my life. And 100%, that's probably the single biggest in my professional career that has changed just my thought process, my business. And again, that's why we're here, even in the car wash space. So super excited when he told me about you, Tim. I was like, no way, we get to, this is the first step. My goal someday, Tim, not to, make this any less than what it is. My goal would absolutely be to interview Don Miller on this podcast. Okay. So, we got to get there. You got to throw that out
This
there.
is step one of our master plan.
This is step one. And speaking of master, Tim just said, he was just at the Masters. And what I loved about what he said, I'm like, dude, you were at the Masters. That's amazing. I didn't know that. And I would love to go to the Masters. And he said, listen, you just say you're going to go, and then you figure it out. And I love that already about Tim. And I love that about people. You've got the optimist, right? The glass half full versus empty. You think you can, you think you can't, you can't. You're right either way. And I love his mindset right off the bat, because that's how I am. I'm like, okay, Tim, I'm going to see you at the Masters next year.
That's right.
Because he said it's just a paradigm shift. You think you can, you can. I love it. So I'm really excited, Tim, even just getting to know you right off the bat here. I'm like, this is my kind of guy. And that's where we're at today. We just go, we roll, we do it. And so, Tim, again, welcome to this podcast. I'm excited to learn more. And the topic is success. So just real quick, when I think of success, I think it's a little, it can be cliche, right? It can be, and people are always talking about, well, what's success to you and what's success? And to be honest, I mean, I'm getting older. I've read a lot of books on success. I've ran different businesses, and it's this interesting topic that it's so different to everybody, right? Success is so, to me, it's different than it is to you, to Josh, and it's different in the phase that you're in. I have a lot of kids. Like, success to me is different than where I was 10 years ago. It's going to be different 10 years from now. So success is just this thing sometimes that I almost don't want to be honest, I sometimes don't even want to get into it. So I was a little bit like, okay, I'm interested to see what Tim has to say here about success. And so let's dive into this book. I know, Josh, you have some questions for him. I'm probably just going to be, I was going to say I would be a fly on the wall, but Josh knows that's not true. I'm going to have to get my words in. But anyway, let's rock and roll. I'm excited for this to happen. Let's learn about this book, Tim. So go for it, Josh.
So Tim, The Secret Society of Success. You've been around books. You've been around writers a lot of your career. Why did you decide to write this book that's coming out here in a few weeks?
Yeah, Levi, you're so right. There is an evolving definition of success, and everybody does view it a little bit differently. Let's just talk about golf for a second. So I used to play a lot of golf, and then I had kids.
Me too.
So I no longer view being a great golfer as success.
Yes.
I'm okay letting that slip.
Yes.
Because in this season of my life, I've just decided I'd rather be a good dad than a good golfer. And a good dad means, for me, not for everybody, but for me in this season, it means being around and being available. And so in every season, we do get to ask that question, what is success? And so as I've worked on this book and as I've been on this career journey for the last 15 years, I've just been influenced by a lot of other people's definitions.
Yeah.
People define success a particular way. It's often money, fame, power, climbing the ladder, stepping into the spotlight. And as I chased after these things, I wasn't getting the kind of meaning and fulfillment in my life that I actually really was wanting. Because I think all of us want to live meaningful lives. We want to be content in the life that we are living. And sometimes we get up against this, we live in this tension between kind of the way that we actually want to live when we're quiet and totally thinking about things for ourselves, that the still deep voice inside of us is saying, this is success, right? It's being with your family. It's, running a culture and a business with a really healthy culture with people that you want to lock arms with and, accomplish things together. These are the kinds of things that I would say success is. But so often we just get trapped into a very different way of looking at things. And so really this book is an exploration of all these different people that I've been learning from, that I would say, okay, if success isn't fame, money, power, what is it, right? And so, one of my favorite stories and somebody that I've been really influenced by as I've started to think about success differently is Apollo 11. So, I know most people are probably familiar with Apollo 11. You have Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. What a lot of people don't know, there's actually a third astronaut on that mission, and his name was Michael Collins. So you got this guy, Michael Collins. He Ubers Neil and Buzz to the moon, drops these guys off. They do all these various tasks on the moon's surface while he, back in the command module, orbits the moon something like 26 times until those guys are ready to be picked up and brought back to Earth. And to me, what would make this a miserable story would be if he gets back to Earth and sits down with the press and is like, well, it sure would have been nice to walk on the moon, and acted like a victim, tried to take the spotlight away from the mission as a whole, but that's not what happened. What happened was he got back, sat down with the press, and talked about how content he was to have one of those 3 seats.
Yeah.
He was happy to be part of the mission. And so as we look at success, so many of us feel like we have to walk on the moon to be happy. That's what success is, right? But then you look at how Michael Collins lived, and you're thinking, maybe that's not it. What if success can look like being a part of a team, helping others win, contributing to something greater than yourself? And so it's stories like this and so many others that I've been influenced by over the last 5 years as I've been working on this book, that I'm just wanting to help people answer the question, what is success? And just give them some new ideas, some new concepts maybe that they could latch onto that feels true and right for them. Because I really don't care how people define success, really. It's not my job to do that for somebody. This is the life that we all get to live. You can do and live however you want. But for me, when I'm looking at what a successful life looks like, the way that I'm defining it looks a little bit more like living in the way of the secret society, which is this group of people that I've really identified, and really they're the ones that are leading the way and showing me the way that I want to live.
Yeah. You talk, obviously you did a lot of research for this book and learning from a lot of different people, some that we haven't heard of, but we've heard of some of the accomplishments that they've had, which says a lot. And then also a lot of very high profile people that have learned how to identify the success and what you call being a part of the secret society. And some of the stories that you tell, I think, are so relevant to the guys that are listening to this podcast, because a lot of them are car wash owners or they're owning small businesses, and they're employing people that they have a lot of influence over. And a lot of them being a part of the youngest generation in the workforce, and they have the opportunity to mold and to shape. What is it? How do you feel for a leader building this type of a culture from your experience? I know that you've worked with some high profile people. You've worked with, and you're even around high profile people in a lot of situations that you're put in. What have you seen and learned in the way that they handle the people around them, how they influence the people around them, and building this culture that make people want to follow them and be a part of their mission and what they're doing?
So Don spoke at an event in Atlanta, and another speaker at this event, this is probably 5 years ago, was a guy named Andy Stanley. And so Andy's an incredible communicator, great storyteller, leadership expert. That I loved his talk. And the whole event, the conference, was around finding your purpose. So many of these are business professionals trying to show up at work, running their businesses in a way that really feels aligned with their purpose and can give them that meaning. And so we live in this culture and society that really treats it like kind of the what's in it for me questions. That's really how we look and view our lives. Mm-hmm. And, so to ask these kinds of questions, like what's in it for me? Why am I here? These are very normal, natural questions. It's almost like survival mechanism in asking those questions. But Andy says, if we truly want to live meaningful, purposeful lives, we need to ask a very different question. And that question is, who am I here for? And what I love about that question is it takes and it requires us to show up and bring our best, to do our thing, to operate out of our skills and our passions. But it flips our mindset to do all of that in the service of others. right? Like, who am I here for? What that means is I'm going to show up that day, and if I'm asking myself that question, I'm thinking, okay, I'm running a business, I'm leading a team. Who am I here for? It all of a sudden infuses so much meaning and purpose into the work that you do, because it's not about you. And in fact, maybe it's about helping that team member get a little bit better that day. And your job was to develop them, right? So I love this concept so much that I got back to my office, created an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and up at the top I wrote, who am I here for, really big. And under it, I put the pictures and the names of every single team member and their families. Because on the days when I'd get really busy and, I had a long list of tasks, a full day of, meetings, it's so easy to get very consumed in just my world. But it's on those days that I just needed that visual, that reminder to cause me to just pause for a second and just ask, who am I here for? Who am I showing up for today? And how can I maybe get out of my own little world and maybe live a little bit more over here on the other side, where I'm actually thinking of others and how I can help them be at their best?
I'm going to comment on that for a second, Tim. I think that as the owner, or even, you look at the car washes, right? In any business, you have kind of that trickle down effect. Whether it's positive or negative, it's going to trickle through the organization. And I feel if you go to work, let's imagine an owner right now goes to work and it's all about them, right? The staff knows it. The site managers know it. The managers know it. How are they going to act to their subordinates? Who are they going, how are they going to be? They're going to be the same way. They're going to be like, well, if it's about him, it's about me. And it creates a culture that's with him, what's in it for me culture, which I think can destroy cultures, as we know. But imagine the other way, right? With our kids, we talk about our kids, and that's me right now too. I'm all about my kids, and we have similar stories, Tim, we haven't talked about, even with golf and different career paths and fame and whatnot. But right now it's about my kids, and that is the success. But the kids, we always say more is caught than taught, right?
Yeah.
But that's not just our kids. Yeah. That's your staff. That's your people on site. So if the owner comes in and they're there to serve, and they're there to, what can I do for you today to make your jobs easier? That's a direct reflection on how that manager, that site manager, is going to be to theirs. And that type of culture, in my opinion, is a much more healthy culture that is good for everybody, right? But it can happen either way. But I don't think I know from experience that has to come from the top down. And so when we can go in, get ourselves out of the way and say, what are we here for? I love that, Tim. I love that we have to serve others, right? When we're serving our people, they're going to serve their people. And guess what? Those I don't want to say low level, but those that are talking to customers every day coming through, what are they there for? They're there to serve them. And this is trickle. And now this service is amazing. And you see that in companies like, we mentioned Chick-fil-A a lot. But the person at the window, they want to be there, but they want to be there because they want to serve you, because they're being served from the top. So I love it.
Yeah, that's it. And so I just launched a podcast called Build a Winning Team. And my very first episode was with my friend David Novak. And David ran Yum Brands. He's the co-founder, former chairman, and CEO of Yum, which is the parent corporation for KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut. So when David was running Yum, he had 1.5 million employees. I mean, crazy, right?
That's
but
insane.
David talks about that, organizations become a shadow of their leader. The leader casts a shadow, right? And so what I love about David is he decided that he was going to recognize people for their contribution. Recognition was going to be the driver for their business and their ultimate success. And he grew the business from $4 billion to $32 billion. So you talk about these kinds of, oh wait, you got a leader who's focusing on recognition, and that's going to be the primary driver for their business. It's like, that's exactly what they did. And so he wanted to, when they were starting Yum, they wanted to find out what some of the best companies were doing, and then model them, their behaviors and things after some of these top companies. And he said the number one quality that they found, and looking at all these great cultures, the Walmarts, the Targets, those kinds of companies, he said they created cultures where every person counts. Everyone matters, right? And so what they would do then is recognize people's behavior when they were helping drive the business and move it forward. And so, for us, it's so easy to just, again, get so caught up in our own thing. But when was the last time that we recognized somebody for doing great work, that we called them out? And, we had this guy, Dan Heath, on our podcast when I was working at StoryBrand, and he talked about this study where they interviewed managers and said, do you frequently recognize your people for the work that they do? And 80% of those leaders said yes. But then when they asked the employees, are you often recognized for the work that you do? Only 20% of them said yes. So he calls that the recognition gap. So it just seems so simple, but these are the kinds of things that can really shape our culture, our businesses, right? It can help drive the results in the business simply by just, as a leader, casting the shadow that every person counts, and I'm going to recognize you and call out the value that you are bringing to the company. We want people to feel, if they don't show up, that we're suffering because of it. They want to show up and feel like they matter. And we as leaders can recognize our people and start to build that kind of culture.
That's good.
That's super good. And I will tell you, I struggle with that. And I'm just being vulnerable here, but it's hard because as an A-type business owner, ideas guy, this is my deal. I built it. I grew it. It was my idea. You have a job, do your job, because that's what you should do. That's it's not exceptional. Do your job. And I can get into that trap. It's not healthy. And my wife is good with me. And prior to me hiring Josh, I hired Josh as a coach, actually, through the StoryBrand deal.
I like how it says hired.
Hired.
Uses quotes.
I don't know.
I don't know what that means.
I think there's two hiring processes. One was I was contracting. I hired him to coach me, right, through the StoryBrand kind of hero on a mission and all that. And then once we got to know each other, and we knew we needed him full time for our company. But even before that, Tim, it's those are the times that I have to really look back. And I think a lot of guys are wired like me, to be honest. A lot of entrepreneurs and guys that are running businesses, we're just we got vision, we're going, we're doing. And I have to take a step back and say, hey, I need to appreciate these guys, and I'm trying to shift in my role. It was just a couple guys for a while. Now we have, there's only 9 of us, but that's 8 other people that I'm responsible for, that I need to make sure and be reminded to know that we're not here because of me. We're here because of the team. And so it kind of hits home with me a little bit. I'm like, okay, did I appreciate Josh? Did I appreciate Jeremy? Did I appreciate even, Drew and Austin, these guys? And I have to make sure that, and I think in general, as business owners, I think because of that mentality, sometimes this is a really good reminder that it's not about us. It's not us that has made this so great. It's about everybody else. And we have to make sure that we go back to that. So Josh, keep me accountable, right? Make sure that I'm keeping everybody.
It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be this massive new initiative. It can be something as simple. All it is putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. So here's just an example, right? Imagine getting off this interview and you sit down with Josh, even before you guys sign off, and say, Josh, man, I just really appreciate you showing up prepared for that interview. You asked really great questions. It really, the work that you did really created a really positive, awesome conversation. I'm so grateful for you, man. Keep it up. That was great. What does that take? 15 seconds? Right? But imagine the lift that Josh gets from that, because he feels seen. The work that he does is not in vain. He actually, so here's what is true in a lot of our businesses. If we do our jobs well, we become invisible. Because if, let's say that Josh is doing his job exceptionally well, his job as a host of this podcast is to do the research and kind of get out of the way, right? To show up prepared, to really tee everybody else up for, success, Just keep the ball moving, keep everything rolling, right? If he does his job well, in a lot of ways, he just kind of becomes invisible, right? If he starts fumbling over his words, asks bad questions, those are the times when we're going to actually see his performance. It's when he messes up that he becomes visible, right? Think about, okay, so here's another really great example. I'm at a concert, and there's a guy running the spotlight, in the back of the room, and the lead singer was playing guitar, and then the next song, he jumped onto a piano, which was a little bit further back on the stage. For a minute, the guy running the spotlight lost him. And so you could see, we're all looking at it in the audience. The guy's like doing figure eights, clearly lost, right? And the lead singer just jokingly says, "Gotta stay with me, bro," and everyone laughs. He found him, the show went on. But I just was thinking, holy smokes, if the guy running the lights is doing his job well, we never notice.
You never know.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so now all of a sudden people don't know what they're not thinking about you because we almost just take it for granted when people do great work. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be recognized for doing great work, right? Because if what happens as a leader is if you just start taking that for granted, people don't feel seen, they don't feel valued. And the reality is we all need a little recognition to feel valued. And so there's a part of that, which is a humility of acknowledging that, man, we cannot do this on our own. We need all of these people showing up and do their thing. And, we're talking about leaders casting a shadow. Someone who I think has cast an incredible shadow is a guy named Tim Cook. So he's now the CEO of Apple, but before that, he was actually COO under Steve Jobs. So Steve Jobs passes away. The person that has been groomed to take over is Tim Cook. So we're at the release of the Apple Watch, which is a big deal, a huge moment for Tim and the company because this is the first new product that they had released since Steve had passed. So they do this big announcement, and after that, Tim's being interviewed on national television, and David Muir asks him, "Is this the moment for you, the moment of your career at Apple?" And just think how you would respond if you're Tim in that moment. Here you've been for the last 2+ decades under the radar, behind the scenes, in the shadow of Steve Jobs, not getting the credit, or people have no idea the contribution that you've made. So you would probably want to use this as a moment to let people know, I'm the man for the job. I got this, right? Like the company is going to be ushered into this next era because of my leadership. I've got what it takes. But again, what's beautiful, these people that live in the way of the secret society, they show me there's a different way to respond and to live and behave. So Tim Cook asks, is this the moment for you, the moment of your career at Apple? And he says, well, it's a moment for Apple. I don't really think about myself that much. Wow. And those two sentences tell me everything that I need to know about Tim and the culture that he's creating at the highest level at one of the largest companies in the world. It's not about me.
Him. I would have been like, actually, it's not just the watch. Like I'm the one who came out with like the Pro and the Max, like those different sizes. So this really isn't my coming out moment, just to let you know.
Right. But that's what. So
right. That's awesome.
In the book, I talk about something called the spotlight mindset, this unhealthy desire for attention and recognition. And there is a human part of this.
Absolutely.
We all want to be seen and valued and feel like we matter. And so for him to kind of take the bait in that situation is so human. Mm-hmm. But a more healthy, evolved way of thinking and behaving is where we can actually kind of get higher level and actually start to look at things through the lens of serving others, it not being all about us. And what I love about how Tim responded is, to me, it's humble confidence. It's confidence in that he knows the value he's bringing. He doesn't need to remind everybody about it, and he doesn't need anybody to really notice him. He's like, I'm confident in my contribution. That's the first thing. But there's a humility that he really knows there is no way that this thing happens with only him. How many people would you need to create and launch an Apple Watch? I don't know, like hundreds, thousands, right? Tim Cook would be a fool to try to take the credit for like, you're welcome, guys, the Apple Watch. No. But so many of us are doing this in some subtle way in our businesses. we're making it all about us, feeling like, oh my gosh, if I was not here, you all are screwed. It's like, gosh, that is so damaging. Like that could be very, very detrimental to the success of your business if that's how you're showing up every day.
If you could leave our listeners with one nugget, and there's a ton, and they need to go buy your book, because that they can learn a lot, but I would give it to your managers to read, and I would give it to the young people that you employ, because these are things that I wish I would have learned at a younger age, and read these kind of books that you and Don and so many of these guys have put out. I wish I just would have read these when I was younger. So give them to your employees. But if you can leave our listeners with just one nugget to walk away from this with, what would it be?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll kind of read you a quote here. This to me has really been the North Star as I've been working on this book. And for anybody listening, if you go to secretsocietyfree.com, I'll actually give you the first 2 chapters of the book to just give you a little taste of some of the stuff that we're talking about. But here's this quote. Albert Schweitzer said, "I don't know what your destiny will be. Some of you will perhaps occupy remarkable positions. Perhaps some of you will become famous by your pens or as artists. But I know one thing. The only ones among you who will be really happy are those who have sought and found how to serve." And may we be the kind of leader that shows up to serve with that who am I here for approach, that values every person's contribution and recognizes people for doing great work, so that we all feel a little less invisible and alone. And I feel like if we do that, we're going to learn how to build, winning teams and successful businesses.
That's really good. So secretsocietyfree.com, they can get the first 2
it.
chapters. And tell us the name of your podcast again. It just launched.
It's called Build a Winning Team.
Build a Winning Team. So you guys go and download the first 2 chapters. We'll put the link in the show notes. Subscribe to Tim's podcast, subscribe to this podcast if you're not subscribed to this podcast as well. And then you've got to buy this book. Go ahead and pre-order it. I've learned, because I've helped a few friends of mine launch books, how important pre-orders are. So help Tim's book launch be super successful, and go in and pre-order this book for you and your staff and your team. And you guys will get it the week it comes out. And I'm really excited. So Tim, thanks for writing this book. Thanks for, helping Don build a business that has impacted our lives and so many of our listeners' lives. And just thanks for who you are and what you do.
Man, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you guys so much. I really loved it.
Yeah, it's great to get to know you, Tim. And real quick, little call to action for Tim here. There are links that he has that he just mentioned, his podcast, but we're going to make this real simple for him. A lot of you guys are driving around in your cars listening. Text the word success to 411-365. So success to 411-365. And we'll send you the links to these for Tim, and make sure you pre-order that book. Follow him on his podcast. I'm excited to do that, Tim. So thanks again for being a guest here. And if you haven't, please subscribe to the Cheers to Freedom podcast. We appreciate all of you guys that are listening now. And until next time, cheers.